Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good day. Let me make myself small and we will get started. I have to remember to keep my mouth close to the microphone so that you can hear me. Okay, so I have a lot of stuff today, like a lot. So we're going to break it up into chunks. We're going to talk about stuff we've already talked about. Then there's pictures and headlines. Then put on your hip boots because we're going into Tartaria and mudflood territory. Yes, we're going to dip our toe. We're going to dip our toe in the waters. Some of you have suggested I look into certain things, and so I'm looking into certain things, and incredibly interesting. Incredibly interesting. And I hope to talk about it in such a way as to I don't know, illuminate it and not certainly not to be like, oh my God, the people who believe that are dumb, because that's not what I'm about. And who knows, I might even believe in it just a little bit. And you might too after we finish this episode. So starting off, last time I was talking about Basil Valentine and the 12 keys and how that's some sort of alchemical code that creates the Philosopher's Stone that can then turn any metal into gold. And I was saying, hey, I wonder if Basil Valentine was contemporaries with Athanasius Kircher. So I found this page, which is very interesting. And here we have Athanasius, 1602 to 1680. He kind of lived a long time, huh? Then we go down, and we've got Basil Valentine, 15th century, not quite the same time. So they were not contemporaries, but certainly one was probably influenced by the other, and I thought this was interesting. This is a Robert Flood, so these are alchemists, and this is supposed to represent the Big Bang, which I think is, at first you look at it and you're like, oh, that's kind of dumb. But when you actually look at scientific photos of what happened during the Big Bang, some of these pictures are not entirely dissimilar if you were to, simplify them. I could be reading too much into it. That page led to this page, which I'm just dropping in the links because it looks like a lot of fun to go around. This gentleman is Adam McLean, and it looks like he has alchemy books, alchemy posters. We got Hieronymus Bosch, right? Practical alchemy, alchemical symbolism, exploring consciousness. That sounds fun. So I'm just going to drop it if anybody wants to look at that. So people looking for the Philosopher's Stone, right? They were trying to make money. They were trying to make gold. They were trying to, make a buck. And all of their fumbling about and dealing with these chemicals and combining stuff and, having these big elaborate labs, and kings would hire alchemists for their staff, like they would have, jester, whatever, but there would be an alchemist, and his job would to be in the basement with a bunch of test tubes and stuff and to try to make gold. And he would report to the king, oh, I'm so close to making gold. It's so close, sir. I know it. It's just right around the corner. All of this chaos actually created a certain amount of order, because what happened is people who felt like they were getting closer were like, well, did I use 2 drops of mercury or did I use 1 drop of mercury? Did I use 1 bar of lead or did I use 3 bars of lead? So measurements had to be made. Measurements had to be made so that they could narrow down what was needed to create this. And so out of this, roughly, the scientific method was born, or rather rediscovered, because it's obviously something that's been around for a long time. And it's just something that we're giving a name to. But the scientific method as a practice was born out of this fumbling for gold out of out of the ether, basically. Now we were talking about Tzin. Again, apologies to the ancestors of this place for screwing up your name. This is a place on the lake of Lake Pátzcuaro, and we looked at this last time. Remember, we looked at the tower on the tower kind of thing, and I was talking about, what is that, So I looked up a little bit more about the civilization, and the city had 35,000 people in it. The Spaniards came. Obviously, everything kind of changed. There's some more information in here about what it's like to kind of like walk through it. Just some very basic information. But basically, they were part of the Tarascan Empire, and the Tarascans were the only people to resist the conquering of the Aztecs. They were not defeated by the Aztecs. And they kind of had their own language, their own customs, their own thing. And they built these elaborate things, including what I just showed you, and that was known as the Palace of the Hummingbird, which is really lovely, probably because it was on a hill by a lake and the wind would probably come up. It was probably very beautiful to be up there with your ritual items walking back and forth. There was a king. The king, they use that term loosely, ruled a multi-ethnic empire of 72,500 square kilometers, matching the Aztecs in might and power. Now, there's an interview here with an academic who goes into the more the actual history so that you can read it. But the Tarascans, if they took over an area, they didn't conquer the peoples. They were like, listen, we're kind of in charge. We kind of might ask you to pay some taxes, nothing crazy. You're just going to contribute to the empire, but you can keep studying what you study. You can keep practicing your religion. You can just keep doing what you're doing. All we ask is that you pay homage to me as the king. And people were like, heck yeah, sure. So it was very forward thinking. They were very in touch with the environment and the world around them. Just an incredible civilization that we really don't know a whole lot about, that I feel like we should know more about. Now, the final days, there's a podcast that you can listen to. The year was 1520. Zuanga, the 16th emperor, or Kazonsi, of the Tarascan Empire, could barely stand, but he struggled to do so. From the royal residence on the hill called Uarato, he watched the sun set over Lake Pátzcuaro. He had been born on the island of Geneseo in the middle of the lake to the great emperor Tzipizquer. Under his father's rule, the Tarascans had expanded to the Pacific coast and to the east to challenge the mighty Aztec Empire. Zuanga continued his father's plan of expansion, but knew that his own days were numbered. He could barely stand to watch the sunset over the Great Lake because he had come down with the same mysterious illness that had been killing tens of thousands of his subjects. Like the others, the great emperor had the high fevers and blisters and bumps covering his body. So, smallpox. Smallpox wiped out the Tarascans. This goes into a little bit more about it. Just an incredibly interesting read about a civilization that I knew nothing about. Very mighty. Here's some photos just for you to look at. Here you can see the Moorish influence on the architecture. That's a later building. It's not going super far back. Here's a close-up of the some of the tower thingies. And just some more pictures. Just kind of nice to look at. Imagine yourself walking around the town and smelling the shrubs. I don't know if you've ever been in the desert, but the shrubs have a certain smell. And I know there's creosote. Oh, that can't be right. I want to say peyote, but if I'm sniffing peyote in the shrubs, that's a whole different thing. Okay. Why the heavens of Peru are a hell of a place to seek a fortune. Last time we were talking about the women that go up into the mountains and search for gold. And there's a reporter who said, I think I want to go up and I want to see what this is about. And so he went there, and it goes into his journey about how he got there and how hard it is to get there and how unforgivable the environment is and how cold and damp, and there's nothing there, and there's just no resources other than the gold that's there. And he ends up sleeping in a bordello because it's the only place that's available to sleep in. And then in the morning, he gets up and he goes and he investigates this. And he says, our off the grid story begins with a hitchhiker. A year prior, we had departed Unamonth, a Haitian garment factory town upon which a few noticed economists had pinned a frail t-shirt sewing future for that collapsed country. We were speedily making our approach to Cap Haitian when we spotted the backpacker and wondered, who hikes through Haiti? The bespectacled traveler told many tales of fantastic adventurers. There was a far-off land, he said, where men live higher than all others, pursuing a quest for gold under an Andean glacier, receiving no pay until, by the grace of the boss man, they are allowed to excavate for their own gain. He had journeyed from the cacophonous Peruvian city of Juliaca up to Rinaconda by bus. He lasted a day. It was an execrable place, he said. So this made the guy want to go there. He was like, yeah, that sounds good to me. So he started going, and apparently you get very sick because of the altitude. He had altitude sickness. Some of the people had edema, like your lungs can swell up with fluid from altitude. This guy says that you should have left yourself longer time to acclimatize. And the guy's like, yeah, well, here we are. So it's at 5,200 meters. Everest Base Camp is 5,300 meters. So very, very high up. And it goes into, it tells like a story from a very humanist perspective about the different people and him interacting and sharing food with them and where some of these folks come from and what they're hoping to do with their gains. Out of all the stories that I'm posting, this is probably the best one. Okay, we're closing in on the end of this portion of stuff I find interesting, episode 14. Last time we were talking about Colombia and Falan. Falan was that place with that creepy tunnel that went in, and it was the lost city of Falan in the middle of Colombia, like nobody even knew it was there. Well, this is another place in Colombia, and this is known as the Sistine Chapel of the Amazon, and it's rock art that's basically in the middle of nowhere. A British wildlife filmmaker has returned from one of the most inaccessible parts of the world with extraordinary footage of ancient rock art in an area of Colombia so vast and remote that contact still has not been made with some tribes thought to live there. Mike Slee used a helicopter to access the site and film hundreds of paintings depicting hunters and animals believed to have been created thousands of years ago. Fascinating stuff, right? So there's this park, and this guy went in on a helicopter, and here he found all of these rock paintings. And I have another picture. And if I keep doing this, it's because I'm stupid and I put the camera like right in my way. Sistine Chapel. Here's another picture. You can see the crew. They're filming it. They've just been dropped off by helicopter, and they're filming this amazing site. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna move this down just a little bit. There we go. How's that? That's better, right? Okay. Perfect. So the images. Sistine Chapel of the Ancients. I had the title wrong. Depict animals, humans, and geometric patterns. Now, it's interesting. This is very similar to some of the Native American art that has been found in America. It's very similar to some of the Aboriginal art. There's a wall that's been found, I think, in, I want to say New Zealand. That's very similar. And one might say, well, these are very common motifs, and it makes sense that people would make the same kind of designs. But I would argue that there's a similarity that transcends that idea. This was created about 12,000 years ago. They think, they're not really sure because it's made out of ochre, which is rock that they grind up and they sort of make a paste out of it. It can't be dated. So they can only date based on what's around it, not necessarily like the rock itself. They can't really do a whole lot. And also they can look at the patina and how worn it is. Here's some more about the about the rock. Now, it's interesting. Where did I find it? Hold on just a second. I lost it. But there was something in there about a hummingbird. I think the Colombian, they called that like land of the hummingbird. But I remember thinking, oh, that's two lands that were called, or two areas that were called hummingbird. So maybe that's some kind of message. So then I looked up hummingbird meaning. Messenger of joy, love, and good luck. A symbol of beauty, playfulness, and resilience. Those with the hummingbird as their spirit animal tend to be happy. They're joyful people who love life and all of its challenges. So I guess that's the lesson for today. Maybe that's not for me. Maybe that's for you. Maybe you need to learn how to be more playful and resilient. I don't know. I probably do. Not the resilient part, but perhaps the playful part. But it's hard to be playful, right? When things are so, you know what I mean. Okay, finishing up. I was talking about Michigan. I think at some point in my searching for links, I went on a Michigan kick. I don't know why. But if you live in Michigan, you might really, really dig these pictures of these stereographs from the 1800s of Michigan in being built. So there you have it. That is the first part, and I realized that I went really fast. Right? That's crazy. But I wanted to keep it quick. Next is pictures and headlines, and I hope you will join me.